Maps are dead with Mike D. I'm still getting used to saying that, guys. I'm a couple episodes in, haven't quite got there. I am incredibly excited to have a very old friend. Part of doing this podcast has been able to reconnect with people I haven't seen in a long time. Barb Roose. Barb, you and I worked together back in 2013, 14, 15. I mean, way back, right? Like
It may have been way back for you, Mike. It's not way back for me. It was only a few years ago, friend. Only a few years
only a
ago.
few years ago, completely. Barb is, you are an author, a speaker, a podcaster, an agent. You've worked in places of faith, you've worked in places of business. You really challenge women to step into their relationship with God and adventure and purpose. And so I was really excited when you said yes to be able to have this conversation. This isn't necessarily a podcast about faith, but it is about learning to navigate your life in transition, and faith and understanding yourself is key to that. And you have been like an advocate of that for as long as I've known you. So thank you for being willing to spend the next 45 minutes with me.
Well, you have played a formative role in establishing a framework or a foundation for some of the changes that I've experienced over the last 12, 13 years. You've played a significant role in that journey. So it's fun to revisit that, but also to be able to talk through kind of how that's actually looked like in real time.
Yeah, because you've made some. Because when we knew each other together, I was consulting for Cedar Creek Church at the time, and you were on staff and speaking there, and even have transitioned, and that's when you transitioned off into even more writing. You're writing at the time, but doing even more writing and speaking of things. And so I thought it'd be kind of great to talk through how some of those transitions have occurred. But for those of you playing along at home, Barb's, I think the themes we've got for you, Clifton Strengths themes, still strategic, learner, achiever, input, and focus. So
Yes.
strategic, learner, achiever, input, and focus. As we go through some of this, I'll explain some things and we'll talk through some pieces of it. But what's interesting, again, strategic, learner, and input, all strategic thinking themes. So problem solving, gathering information, and then achiever and focus, executing themes. And so
Yes.
we'll talk about that, especially focus. I'm going to want to really chat with you about how your focus shows up when it comes to when you're making decisions and navigating. How do you not get hooked on the wrong things? What does that look like? So some of those items. Do those themes still sound resonant for you?
They do. I've always oh goodness, years ago we did a management team meeting. You did it, and you did your whole magic mic thing when you went around the room, and it's a different kind of magic mic, friends.
It's a different thing,
It's
but it
just a little
works.
different.
It's a
But
party trick.
that thing you do, we had all of our strengths finders, our top five on these
Yep.
giant post-it notes on the wall. You go around the room and you kind of give the summary. And what has stuck with me, you said, Barb, you are like MacGyver. You jump into a situation, you look around, and basically with a broken pen and duct tape, you put together a plan and you get going. And
Yep.
you may not take everybody with you.
Yeah, that's about that's I would say that about that the profile.
Yeah, and that was something I have never forgotten about
Mm,
that, and it provided a self-awareness for me as a leader. So
mm,
those themes, even though I've always felt a little, just a little, because I wanted more influencing themes, but
sure.
that early Strengths Finder awareness
Yeah.
helped me start to make peace with who I was and to lean into that instead of try to create something that I wasn't.
That's because that's kind of what you hope for when you're coaching, is that understanding. We talk a lot about the fact that Gallup's belief is that we have more upside in our strengths than we do in our weaknesses. And so while filling in the gap of weaknesses kind of medicates our fear, it doesn't necessarily create impact as much. It doesn't create, and so impact and growth comes from leaning into strengths. And so always trying to get that point of really calling out that genius that you don't even know is there necessarily, right? It's you of all people as an author and an agent even know that how much words matter, and that people have feelings, but until it gets to words, it doesn't quite get the impact it could have in some ways.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm gonna do the highline definitions, because within your five, We always say there's like three that kind of stand out. So strategic is in Clifton Strengths. For those of you who don't know what that is, Clifton Strengths and strategic is different than strategic in like normal day-to-day vernacular. Strategic in normal business language might be your long-term plan. Strategic in Clifton Strengths language is short-term decision making to remove roadblocks. So it's not necessarily deep. It's more about there's a boulder in the road. How do I get it out of my road, go around it, over it, or through? It's very kind of responsive. So the comment, Barb, when I said you may not bring everyone with you, that's that strategic part because it's very quick. Does that resonate?
Oh goodness. And that really, again, it provided a foundational understanding into what my natural bend was going to be. And I
Hmm.
have held on to it. I am wired to be a person that can look at a problem, and I have the ability in the short term, in the moment, to be able to see the fastest path through the barriers or to
Hmm.
see around the barriers. And that is a strength, but I
Yeah.
also recognize that I have to tap into because I have emotions. And if I know that there is fear, and especially something that I know that I have to be aware of is a fear of failure, I
Hmm.
don't want my skill at being able to see through the path to least resistance. I don't
Yeah.
want fear to be the gas on that skill,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
then that's where that thing comes in where I may not actually be making the best decision. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get through to deal with, to not have to confront a fear of failure or a failure.
There's so interesting you say that because fear can be, I like that. The fear can be the gas that drives the strategic sometimes in some ways.
Mhm.
When you think about that, because one of the things I like to say is for strategic is that you're brilliant at solving the problem, solve the right problem. And so, and so that moment of understanding and the problem to be solved, it's so funny. I think about the problems that I thought needed to be solved when I was 20 are different than problems I thought at 30, which are different than four. In that, and the problems to be solved when I'm an individual contributor, just doing my job in a role, in a family, in life, in business, is different when I'm leading others, right? Solving the result as well as because we talk about, hey, it's not just about the answer, it's about knowing why your team didn't come up with the answer as well. And so it's solve and how have you found at your best moments, are you able to navigate to go, you know what? To check what you said. This isn't about fear. Hey, Mike, this is a problem, but you're like, but this is actually the deeper problem to solve. How do you navigate that?
Well, in a deep ironic twist, my in the author part of my life, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
I'm a traditionally published author in the faith space.
Hmm.
My best or my fastest selling book is actually a Bible study titled Surrendered. And it is about letting go of control. And so someone who is who I believe that God, a higher power, whatever it is your listeners want to
Hmm.
attribute to, I
Sure.
am naturally wired to problem solve well. It is something
Okay.
I've been at since I was a kid. But when
Right.
you talk about being the key is to look and go, is this the right problem to solve? And so in my
Mm.
personal life experience, I was presented with a situation as an adult of having a spouse who was
Yeah.
battling an addiction. There were
Hmm.
problems everywhere. And in the early part of that journey, there were a lot of problems that needed to be solved. And I was like a whack a mole, and I was
Mm.
applying solutions and books
Yeah.
and all of the things. But the thing that happened was when you're good at solving not the deeper issue, you're going to relationally start to burn things up
Mm.
because the
Yeah.
deeper issue is unsolved. And so what I needed was to have there in mindfulness, you have the stimulus and you have the response, and then there's the gap in the middle. So the
Right.
stimulus is there's a problem. The response is me going, this is what I think.
Right.
Mindfulness was the space where I had to go, wait a minute, let me stop.
Mm.
Do I have to ask myself, is this my problem?
Right.
Is this something that I need to step into now? And if
Yeah.
I need to, if it's not my problem, am I willing to let go and to take care of myself, make me
Yeah.
my problem instead of trying to solve someone else's problem? If I make
Yeah.
me my problem, then I use my strategic skills to work on me in that moment.
Yeah.
What do I
Yeah.
need to do? Do I need to take a walk? Do I need to pray? Do I need to phone a friend? So that's
Yeah.
how I've had to navigate that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally does. Because I think because what you're describing, I think, is the key piece is that I heard someone say one time, you'll always do what comes naturally. The trick is to understand why. And so there's so many times where we try to control our strengths. And I'm like, no, 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 control your character and your health. Like knowing in that moment, right, of being able to go, okay, my brain wants to solve under fear, stress, fatigue. I need to, or like I'm too insular. So, like you said, I need to talk to my friend. I need to pray. I need to meditate. I need to be mindful. Is that instead of just running to the problem, going, wait, 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 wait. I'm a talented, healthy individual who has skills and abilities. I should be healthy in wielding them,
Yes.
right? And finding in that space instead of instead of turning all my responsiveness, because again, strategic and people who also have strategic activator ideation, for those of you out there who have other themes, you're going to find your brain is very responsive externally, and it can default into that. Maturity and getting better with our strengths is learning how to be able to be like, well, actually, I am going to temper that with, am I responsive to the state of myself before I wield those tools
That's
in some ways?
so, so good. Because without that, then we've got everybody running around with hammers that are the name of their top strength. And so when
Yeah,
you only got a hammer, you're going to use it on everything and everyone.
100%.
And that was a state that I was in because I
Hmm.
was a good problem solver all over
Yeah,
my life. And I was a person who was a kind problem solver. So it
yeah.
wasn't as if I was this maniacal, crazy person trying to make people miserable, but it was what you said. Your strengths, like that's just who you are, but to control
Yeah.
your character and your behavior, that was the learning gap that I
Mm.
needed, the journey I had to take.
Yeah, because one of the things that comes up with strategic sometimes is the analogy of strategic always knows which lane of traffic is moving faster. And so they
Yes,
can
we do.
instinctively they change the lane, right? They know they see there's gonna be a hole. You guys say things like there's gonna be, I'm like, gonna be a hole. What are you talking about? You can see the capping of the brakes ahead.
I honestly, it is a visual thing in my mind. When I am listening to someone or when I'm on the highway
Uh-huh.
driving, my brain turns into this little robotic calculator thing. And in my mind, I'm watching all of the patterns and I can
Mm-hmm.
see the path. And I do that in conversations. And that
Yeah.
is a positive, but it is also a negative.
Yeah, because sometimes people strategic say, I always know which lane of traffic's moving faster, so I know how to change lanes. But we'll forget sometimes I should just get off the highway.
Ooh, say that. Say
Right?
that.
That's that whole thing. Is that there's moments where you're like, wait a minute. If somebody had told me the reason for this backup is no amount of lane changing, it's actually not worth it. It would be faster to get off the highway. And so even as you're talking about that situation, being, in your marriage, in your life, we people can whatever they're facing when it comes to transition, strategic just run amok ends up going, I can solve it, I can solve it, I can solve it, and realize the actual solve is to not solve this problem and go find the right problems to solve.
So back to real life. So
Real
I've
life.
been single again for,
Yeah.
I think I'm going into year number 6. And
Okay.
being strategic,
Yeah.
I was married for 26 years. And after about a year, I was like, well, let me just date. I was
Hmm.
married my whole adult life. So
Yeah.
when you're strategic, you approach the dating apps and I go, what is the fastest way to success? I did all of the research. I looked at all of the things and Shazam, there I was on the dating app with the right pictures, with the right profile, got
Yep.
dates, no problem. Got dates, dates upon dates,
Yeah.
so many dates, and still single, and still single. And so the part of me, the conversations that I had for a long time were, we don't have any problems getting dates. We don't have any problem. We have great times on dates.
Yeah.
I thought that all of these things should lead to lasting love in a relationship. And so what I came to terms with about a year ago was that even though I was really good at getting dates, dating profiles,
Hmm.
interests, that actually wasn't going to be enough. And so I actually
Yeah.
did get off the highway about a year ago
Nice.
because I could see everything. And
Yeah.
I just got off the highway and I just realized and went, there's just something else there. And so no
Hmm.
matter how good and gifted and skilled and strategic,
Right.
sometimes there's something else beyond that.
Yeah. And knowing how to, yeah. And finding, and then that's it. That's the thing of learning. I have to say to people, confidence, confidence isn't created, it's remembered. And it's
Say
this
that again.
idea.
Say that again.
Confidence isn't created, it's remembered. And so
Mm.
reminding yourself that you wait, oh wait, I have in the past, I can trust myself that I can get off the highway. Could be like, oh, but Barb, you've got to be on all the apps right now. You might go back to the apps someday, who knows? But right now, why would I keep trying to use the same tool to solve a problem that's not being solved? And so being able to say, wait a minute, having confidence in yourself and going, I can trust myself to make these choices. I can trust myself to go, yep, there are times when changing lanes is the right thing to do, picking the part of traffic. But I have in my life, looking back, I have major moments where I knew I needed to get off the highway, and that serves me well. Having that confidence to look back at your best moments and go, yep, I can apply that now. I think people think strengths navigation is about using your strengths, like Clifton Strengths words, when in reality it's about remembering the moments when you felt strong and
Oh,
using that
that's
well,
good. That's
you
good.
know?
And that really has, I think, played out for me.
Mm.
Again, Strengths Finders was a great foundational space for me to understand what I'm good at, and particularly for if your audience, there are women out there who are leaders, or
Yeah,
perhaps you're a person of color, that there aren't as many. There's not as many voices, especially in
right,
higher spaces, that are naturally going, "Hey, you got this. You can do this,"
right.
or even experiences. I was
Yep,
thankful that I've had a good number of experiences where I've been able to get some wins and where I have been
yeah,
affirmed in the space of being in the dating market in
sure,
midlife. It is
right.
wild. And so,
I know, I know.
right? And so
Right.
there was some,
Wow.
there was some grief getting off of the highway,
Hmm.
but I remember telling myself, uh, I grieve because I didn't get what I wanted. I
Yeah,
would take that any day over grieving, staying somewhere desperate. And
right,
that is
right.
what happens when we don't feel strong. We're going to get knocked
Yeah,
over. Now, to what
yeah,
you said, I have dabbled back and forth in the apps,
sure.
but I don't have being successful as a relationship the goal anymore. I just
Hmm.
sometimes I just want to go out on a date and meet
Yeah,
somebody new.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
That's it. And that feels strategic to me for where I'm
yeah,
at. In the short term, that's what I need right now,
yeah,
and I'm not worried about anything else.
yeah. And that responsive part of your brain to give yourself that space to go, you know what? Am I, because I think what you're saying is clear, is that keeping the goal of why I need to be strategic in front of you. And so when your goal is like, oh, wait, this is not, it's about when you went to the higher goal of, oh, wait, my new goal is not necessarily I I have to be in love. I have to be in that space. It would be nice. But hey, for this season, I'm okay with my goal being healthy, present. And if a relationship comes that way, great. And if I'm interested in meeting someone now, I can. But my
Right.
goal is not to necessarily win at that. When you think of like what's interesting, so because strategic is problems is decision making to remove roadblocks and keep things moving. Learner is intellectual adventurous. I would like to say people who learn they're unafraid of that which they don't know. They don't necessarily need to be experts at things. And
Mhm.
usually, especially with achiever, I call it think action based thinking. You're trying to do something and you're like, oh, I can educate myself on that. I can learn how to do that. And so that really creates, so not only are you able to make decisions, but you're intellectually adaptable. You're like, oh yeah, give me Google ChatGPT and I'm on it. You're like, you're gonna you're gonna navigate to the answer to anything you need. Do
Yes.
you find that learner has served you well as you've made major transitions from like
It-
business to ministry to author to, as you've navigated? How's it played out for you?
So, if you and I would have had this conversation 10 years ago, I would have given you a different answer. The beauty of age is wisdom. So, what
Mm-hmm.
I've recognized is that those skills matched together, those have allowed me a traditional book contract. Most authors get usually around 9 to 12 months a year of book deadline. I had I basically had to write books in 12 weeks. I would have contracts where I would sign the contract and that book would actually be released on the market in less than a year. I've
Wow.
had two separate sets of times where I've written three traditionally
Hmm.
published books in 1 year. And I
Oh
don't
my gosh.
recommend that for people,
And that's
but
unheard of. That's not typical. They won't want to do that usually. That's amazing.
Well, it is and it isn't. So on the flip side, on the raw side of it all, I
Yeah.
know that I am a fast processor. I research
Hmm.
well. I can do things. But what has been necessary is for every action, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction. I also have to prioritize this ancient spiritual wisdom of
Hmm.
having an absolute day off where my brain
Right.
goes
Rest. Yeah.
on complete shutdown. And so
Mm.
every week, my brain has to go on shutdown because that learner,
Yeah.
achiever, strategic part of me, it always wants
Yeah.
to go. It's game, but
Hmm.
I cannot allow it to be game all of the time.
And especially with, yeah, with Achiever, because I'll throw that in here too. One of the things Achiever says is every day starts at zero. And so no
Yes,
matter what you accomplished the day before, when you wake up in the morning, all previous days' accomplishments have been wiped away. Does that sound
right.
right? Right.
It does. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
people often say, well, can't you just stop? And so it's interesting because you just talked about rest. When a lot of achiever strategic will say, yeah, rest is the struggle. And people say, well, just stop. But I have found in my experience in 20 years of doing this is that stopping is not restful for achiever. It is usually active distraction, meaning
It- it-
activity in something else. Have you found that to be true for you when it comes to refilling your own tank to navigate these things?
So it distraction, it all depends on how we want to do it. I have the combination of my life experiences, so
Hmm.
how I'm wired, the struggle, the addiction struggle that I went through with my marriage,
Hmm.
and so there was this kind of this journey of having to learn how to let go of control, and
Right.
then the intentional practice of rest. So for me, what is restful is actually been a habit of teaching my mind to
Hmm.
be very content with nothing going through it.
Hmm.
That's how I rest. It is me
Wow.
sitting and being happy, literally staring at a wall, and I have nothing going through my mind. That is a way of life
So
for
true
me.
mindfulness practice, right? I
It
mean, is that
is, and
meditation?
it is delicious, Michael. It is,
How did you do that? I want to
it
know more
was
about
over.
that because strategic achiever, that's a big deal. Like that's the holy grail of getting there without your brain. Because learner strategic, they tell me the thought of meditation makes them like their skin crawl because they're so scared of a still mind. How did you get to that place where you're like, I can still my mind to the point where nothing's going through it?
Oh my gosh. So first, it took years. And when I say
Mm,
years, I mean years. I had a coaching client I worked with once and she's like, there's not a chance I can do this. She's wired a lot like me. I said, "Oh, you can. It's going to take a while." So what I had her do was start sitting on a pillow in front of a candle and
mm-hmm,
and to turn on just acoustic music, calming
mm-hmm.
acoustic music, and she had to practice 1 minute at a time, breathing in and breathing out and focusing on the candle. And we did that for a few weeks. And then I said, you're going to move to 90 seconds. And then she finally worked her way up to 5 minutes. And it's someone that I still see. And
Wow.
whenever she goes into a chaotic state, she's a very successful real estate agent, all the things, and she goes back to that candle. And that's a
Mm,
picture of how it had to happen in my life.
mm,
I called it Forest Gumping, and I would just walk for hours
mm,
in my neighborhood and I would look at the trees, I would practice breathing in and out, and I would walk until my mind settled. And I
mm,
just developed that habit of it. And then I would no radio in the car. I got rid of my television because I'm a
mm,
writer, always words. I had a chaotic family situation. So I had to put myself in an environment of quiet and I had to practice quiet. It is the most
mm.
amazing thing in the
It's
world to
amazing.
have
That's
nothing.
awesome. That's so good. That's so good. Because I think, yeah, because I often tell people, it's so interesting you've gone there because I'll tell people I had a couple Olympic athletes that I worked with for USA Triathlon, in the Olympic development program, and they have one of them specifically has strategic and ideation, which is very similar to strategic and input. And so we would talk about during racing, he would have a plan, but he would get very distracted, right? He'd get distracted he'd react to other people. And so one of the things I used to say is I said, listen, I can't ask your brain not to be your brain. I can't ask your brain not to react. I can ask you to limit what it is you let into your brain. And so that became the action. So for people out there with strategic achiever, strategic ideation, thinking themes, activator, things like that as well. Activator falls into other ones, but it's very similar to reactive. Is that what you're describing is the holy grail of being able to go, I have enough control to know how to put the blinder on to let my brain rest because it won't if I don't. And it's literally not a matter of controlling your mind, it's a matter of controlling the input.
And being willing to let things not into your life. There are a lot of
Hmm.
experiences. There's a lot of
Sure.
things that people know that I don't know,
Yeah.
but because I understand who I am and why I'm here, I have a
Yeah.
responsibility to that. So
Yeah.
for all of the cool kid things that I may be missing, what is required of my life and where I'm at, my job as a speaker, my job as an author, my job as a literary agent, my job as a human being to be healthy and engaged and present with my family, then
Yeah.
I got to put boundaries up somewhere. And
Sure.
and me being able to do that allows me then to give my mind the
Yep.
rest it needs. And
Yep.
that's what allows me to keep the life that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so many. Yeah. That's the because there's so many people who I meet as I'm coaching and traveling. That's is they haven't yet found out that it's protection of the treasure, right?
Yes,
Is that
that's
they
a good
think that the
phrase.
reaction is the gift. They think the reaction, you're like, no, 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 no. You are the gift. You're the tree. You're gonna produce good fruit. Protect the tree. Keep it calm. Give it some boundaries. Build some, protection around that. And that's a big instead of thinking their performance is the gift. The being is the gift, right?
Yeah, we are human beings. We are
Yeah.
not human doings. And
Yeah.
in worlds like yours and mine, where there is this element of we do have to be seen because
Yeah.
we do need to, and your clients, you've got these high profile clients. And
Yeah.
so there is this monster in some ways that have to be fed.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
just chose to make a decision in my life
Yeah.
that I was going to be content with the life that I had.
Yeah.
And that means that I'm not spending time, accumulated time looking around at everybody else, what everybody else is doing and wonder if
Yep.
I should be doing it. I'm going to
Yeah.
not run that race. I'm going to be
Yeah.
content with what's in my hand because what's in my hand is pretty good.
Yeah. That's so good. Part of the conversation, the reason why we want to start this podcast is again to give people one more tool to help them navigate differently because the world has run off the map, as we say. And so there's a transition, right? We're using our strengths to navigate different transitions. And transition, William Bridges in his book, The Way of Transition, which
Yep.
we've talked about before a long time ago, Bridges,
Yep.
he would say change is guaranteed, transition is not. And transition is the mental process by which we let go of one reality and embrace a new one. Barb, I could call out in your resume, which we do in our bios, right? Barb worked in pharmaceuticals, and then Barb was in ministry and worked in churches, and Barbara now we have all these authors and titles and things. But I'm interested for me in that, Barb, you were a woman in a faith environment. You are a person of color,
Mhm.
right? You've gone different environments and places. I would like but your profile is, I'm gonna bluntly say, ambitious and strong, achiever and focused. It's an ambitious, driven, which I think everybody, if I love ambition, I think ambition is a beautiful thing. I think influence and making a difference and having impact matters. For you, was there a navigation at all for you when I'm like, because I'm curious about the moment when you're like, I let myself be confident and okay with the fact that I am ambitious and like to have impact and I want to do something that matters. Did you have to navigate that or embrace it, or was it always there and you just eventually had to cultivate it? Was that something you embraced, or like, I don't know if the world's ready, but it was always there, or you're like, no, I resisted it and then I found my confidence? Was there a shift, or were you like, no, it was there. The world didn't see it, or maybe they always saw it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think about all those settings, woman, color, different in these environments, where like they don't give you the keys to the car. You have to go get it yourself.
So, Michael, do you know you've probably had people in your life that have been around for the most profound moments. And I don't know if
Mm,
you've ever had a few people in your life where you went, man, I really hope that there's a day when I could thank them for that one thing that they said that made the biggest
yeah.
difference.
Yep.
Well, that's the moment I am having right now, Michael.
Oh, seriously.
So I knew that you and I were going to talk. And so I had to make some quick notes in my phone. And so, Michael, what does that
Oh
bottom
gosh.
line say?
Yeah.
What does it
It's
say?
okay to have a holy discontent for more. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was December
Hmm.
2014, and you and I were sitting in the then senior pastor's office, Lee Powell, my longtime mentor. And
Yep.
for the audience, Michael had been with our executive team for a season, and all of a sudden
Hmm.
that season had shifted.
Yep.
Lee was recognizing that he had some health issues. He wanted to finish well. He wanted to spend some
Yep.
time with his wife, and so we were all just navigating this space because we
Hmm.
had a very very large church, a large staff,
Yep.
a lot of uncertainty, and for those of us on the executive team individually, for me, I was feeling a ceiling, and I'd felt it a year before. I had been given extraordinary opportunities in my role, extraordinary.
Hmm.
And I still was feeling the ceiling, and I was grappling with it, and I didn't know what to do. And I felt this tension because I had been given what any other woman in my spot around the country would kill for. And I had it in spades, along with support and grace and all of the things. And in Lee's office in December of 2014, it was me, you, and Lee.
Hmm.
And you looked me in the eyes and you said, Barb, it's okay to have a holy discontent for more.
Hmm. Yep.
And what that did was it helped me to stop feeling guilty or to stop fighting against the fact that maybe God had other things planned for me and maybe it was going to look
Hmm.
different than what I thought, but for me to stop feeling guilty about
Hmm.
looking to see if there was life above that ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you,
Because
friend.
I mean, I mean, I'm kind of humbled that you remembered that because I think when I finally wrote my first book in 2018, it was the power of in my own life because you asked if I've had experience on this, the power of people who gave me permission and realizing that I think the greatest thing I love to do as a leader, and I hope other leaders do, is give people permission to trust themselves. Because I feel like as I look back on my life, I can think of I call it the people who gave me my shot. Is that my piano teacher at 6 years old, this farmer I worked for, when I had no self-esteem and no, he let me fail. Like the people who it was my job to take my shot, but people gave me my shot in that moment, and that was the thing, Barb. Is even as I look at your profile of themes, as I'm going, even as I bring it up, because I was like, this is a woman who has in a faith context, because I grew up in that same kind of context. Oh yeah, like you said, this is the stay on stage in front of thousands of people, and you're like, and I'm like, and there's more, and it's just so clear to me, and so I was honored to be able to be in that place that you would let me in enough to be able to say that, and I hope that it landed because it's the greatest thing as a coach to hear is that your words lasted. So thank you for that. That's really kind.
And they did. And that opened up a door to a really wild adventure over the
Mm,
next year. And things didn't go as planned. But fast forward
yeah,
years later, it's been a joy for me to be in kind of in that
yeah,
spot where you're at, where I get to speak to women leaders. And so for me,
yeah,
I get to share with them because there can be this desire to hold on to what we think the
yeah,
pinnacle is. And to be able to say things like, stop clinging to that leadership role or that position like it's the
yeah.
last blessing that God's ever going to give to you.
Right.
I know that in my life, I've had a good career as an author. I have a pretty successful career as a speaker, but I've
Mhm.
also learned that it is okay to have a holy discontent for more. There
Yeah.
are a few more dreams that I have. I don't feel compelled right now to go after them. I'm good where I'm at, but
Sure.
it is okay to have a discontent for more. It doesn't mean that you're discontented with being
Hmm.
where you're at if your heart's posture is really there and to serve. Now, if
Yeah. It's
somebody
kind
is
of in there.
selfish and greedy, that's a whole other story for a whole other
Move 'em
podcast.
on. Right, exactly. The whole other conversation. Because I think, because even as I think about you navigating those pieces, because you said something that, you're like, you made the transition and it didn't go perfect. You
Oh
decided to
gosh,
go on
no.
more and it didn't go exactly the way I mean, I don't even know the details ins and out, but in that moment, what was it looking back, who you are now versus who you were then? How did you manage the I've stepped onto a new road now, and we think it's the possibility, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. There's grieving and loss and imperfection and failure and struggle. How did you keep? What about if you look at your profile or strengths, even anything beyond Strengths Finder or Clifton Strengths, is what kept you going forward when you make a big step, you're transitioning, and people are like, oh, well, this should work because it's the right idea. You're like, no, not always. It can be the right idea and still be imperfect.
Oh yeah. It so that transition from in 2016, so from December, what that allowed me to do from December 14th until December 2015, I was then able to look forward. And that meant that I could make the wise next steps that were needed.
Hmm.
When I actually made the transition, my spouse had left our family. He would come back for a while, but he had walked out on our family, and then he had quit his job. I had left my job. All of that careful planning and preparation that I did to leave my secure corner office, paycheck every 2 weeks, and on January 1, 2016, I was sitting in a home office with one book that was okay and two speaking events and no spouse
That's
and
it.
and a couple of kids looking at me going, "So what's the plan, Mom?" And I mean, it looked nothing, and yet I knew it was the right thing.
Mm,
And it wasn't a pie in the sky right thing. I
no.
knew it was the right thing because
Yeah.
I had an awareness of my gifts.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew that I could make the next right decision.
Yep.
I knew that I could figure it out. And I knew that I could learn the things that I needed to learn. And I had
Yeah.
focus and I could lock in, and that's what happened. And so I prayed a lot, I cried a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I worked a lot.
Yeah, it's true. It's true because you don't because focus is is you have input, which is I always kind of throw input in with strategic and learner because it's simply the ability to retain information, right? I call input the intellectual lint roller. It's like the random facts and data. It's probably the parts that give your writing the depth. You're like, ooh, the texture. Let me tell you exactly what they were wearing at the time when they did the thing. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
We
Input's
call
great
that
texture.
I remember hearing that one of the guys from Pixar, and I think his phrase was, "You got to be careful about shining the backside of a penny."
Yeah,
And
shining the
yeah,
backside of a penny. That's true. Yeah,
because
that's input.
right, because I'll see things, and even now when I'm writing, and I'll be like, "Doo-doo-doo." I had an editor
Hmm.
once. I had an editor once a few projects ago. She was from Texas or from Tennessee. She's a friend of mine. She was my editor for 8 books, so she knew me well. One day I got a random text, and she said, I read it in her voice, "Barb, I'm just sending you this note right now because I got a feeling that you're hopping off on a bunny trail."
You're like, well, I wouldn't have called it that. It was a great idea. I mean, you're
Oh
like,
no,
no, it's
no.
a bunny trail. It's
She
a
was
bunny
she was
trail.
right. I literally
Yeah,
stared at my phone and I was like, "How did she know?" Because I was
yeah,
writing this book and I was off and I had found something that was fascinating and I was like,
yep,
well. So also
yeah,
the power of having people know you.
yeah, exactly. That input learner part. Again, back to the first question of like, when it comes to navigating our lives with strategic and thinking themes, solve the right problem, right? And so sometimes we lose the problem for all the solutions we're hunting for. As we're hunting for solutions, we lose the problem in the mix,
That
right?
is
And that's that whole
so
thing.
yes,
That's that
yes,
whole
yes.
piece. But
Profound,
the
profound.
last one though for you is the with focus. Focus is such it's a unique theme. It doesn't show up a lot. It's pretty strong. Focus is the ability to prioritize, which means that you can shut out the noise and kind of deep dive on something. We kind of call focus the dog with a bone, just a little bit.
That
And
is
so,
me.
and so the good news is though, I have people with focus who'll say to me, you know what? Um, yeah, I can be focused on being unfocused. That when the priorities are
Mhm.
clear, they're locked in. But there's times like I don't feel focused at all. Why is that? And I'll say, just so you know, your brain goes if all things are equal, nothing is important. So
Yes.
too many priorities will
Yeah.
lock things up. how would you describe and kind of contrast for me how you feel like you set priorities now or pick the priorities now versus what you would have done in your in your late 20s, early 30s, kind of as those windows kind of play out?
So
Has it changed?
I have a personal strategy and a
Okay,
professional strategy. Is that a
nice.
surprise?
No, gotta have options. Your strategic is backup plans for your backup plans.
Oh gosh, which again is why I had to write a book about letting go of control. So,
Yes.
I named this strategy
Okay.
top 5. So this happened when I had a book contract sell and I received a contract for 2 books from one publisher.
Okay.
And then it was like a month later my agent called and she said, "Barb, there was a publisher who saw your book proposal. They passed on your proposal, but they want you to write a Bible study for them." And
Hmm.
so, in the course of less than 12 weeks, I had the possibility of 3 book contracts between 2
Yeah.
publishers, and they all would be due in 1 year. And this was in the summer of 2022. And I remember just stopping and going, okay, this is an extraordinary opportunity that you could have never prayed for. Like you just would have
Right.
never thought, Barb, how do you do this and not wreck your whole life? Because I would still have my travel schedule. I would still have
Yeah.
my agent job. And so I spent about 6 weeks going, what does this look like so that you are healthy and you are engaged at the end?
Hmm.
So I created what I called my top 5 because I believe we all have to-do lists, but we also need to have to-don't lists. And
Hmm.
I needed to become really clear on what was going to be on my to-do list. And I had to accept that everything else was going to be on my to-don't list. So here was my top 5. I had to commit to a full night's sleep every night. I had to commit to moving my body every single day. And it wasn't a
Hmm.
workout, just moving my body. I had to
Yeah.
commit to maintaining healthy friendships. I had to eat well. And I had to spend time with God every day because that
Yeah.
is what keeps me. That was my top 5. That meant, Michael, everything else in my life stayed on the to don't list. And it wasn't that I
Hmm.
blew off my job. It was just that these 5 things had to happen every single day. And those were the 5 things that happened every single
Hmm.
day. And so at the end of that, when I turned that final 3rd book in on October 14th, 2023, I mean, I was disoriented as far
Yeah.
as
Sure.
but I was healthy and
Hmm.
I had good relationships and I was able to live out the message of what I had written about. I had 2 books on stress and overwhelm and 1 on prayer, and I lived those books with
Hmm.
integrity. So that was me personally. Professionally, I follow the ABC strategy for my professional goals. My A
Okay.
goal is where I will spend 50% of my time of my work time. It's what I
Okay.
will work on every day. That's my
Yeah.
speaking career. My B strategy is where I will spend 2 to 3 days a week. That's my writing. And my C is my podcast. And so I have a
Hmm.
podcast producer.
Yeah.
I basically spend about 5 to 6 hours a month. So that's me professionally.
Yeah. Yeah. When you've kind of framed those pieces out as how did you get to the point that you realized you needed them? Was it intuitive? You're like, oh, well, I need these things, or did it take breakdown? Did it take not there? How did you come to the point where you're like, oh, wait, I need guardrails and superstructure to hold me there? How did you come to that realization? Because people might feel that, but they're like, oh, wait, I know I need something. I don't know what I need. How did you get to that point where you knew where you got what you've got?
Well, I don't have a sophisticated answer to give you. I
Hmm.
think it can be summed up with people change for a few reasons. Sometimes people change because they want to, but usually they change because it hurts too much not to.
Right. Yeah.
So I had a lifetime when I was working on staff at the church in my early years. I burned myself out every six to
Yeah.
nine months
Totally.
because my strengths finders
Hmm.
were unchecked. I let them run wild.
Hmm.
And so I was a human doing, and the human being part of me was dying.
Yeah.
So I had to go through this human cycle for all overachievers of like, how much longer do you want to live like that? So that was the first part where change had to happen. And then the
Right.
second part was I had to learn that I was not the solution to every problem out there. And
Mm,
that if I took care of the center part of me, then everything else would eventually fall into place. That was the second piece, that was the learning during my family's long addiction series. So
yeah,
even though I formalized those two operational kind of frameworks, it was I had to make all of the mistakes first.
yeah, yeah. It's that feeling that pain of that. Because I think,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the challenge. When it comes to navigating your life and kind of making decisions to step into transition, and I'll kind of pull this together a little bit, is that when you do you know it in advance? Is it, you know how you read the wind? Like you can tell from the Midwest, I'm in Minnesota, but you've been in Ohio a long time. There's a certain color and a certain smell you get when you're like, there's a tornado warning or there's gonna be a thunderstorm. There's a smell in the air.
Mhm.
For you, when it comes to navigating transition, is it something that you're like, I try to practically step into it? Or is it a sense that you're like, you know what, as a deeply spiritual person, are you reading that? How do you know that a change or transition is coming that you're being invited into?
So right now I'm trying to decide if I am on the outsides of it.
Mm,
I don't know. And for me, it's not, I don't have a sense of a career change. I think it's a personal change.
hmm
And so as a person who lives in the Midwest in Ohio, when I step outside, because I like to take a walk to clear my head every day.
Yeah.
And when I walk out of the front door of my apartment building, the first thing I do is I kind of go, and I kind of just feel the wind
Yeah.
on me. And if the wind feels, if it feels soft and gentle, I know I'm
Yeah.
good to go. If I feel just a little bit of a chill, even if it's the hairiest of chill, I go back inside and get a jacket because I don't know what's going to happen. That's the
hmm
uncertainty. Right now, I feel just a little bit of a chill in
mm
my personal life. And so
mm.
this is real time. What I'm
Yeah.
doing right now is I'm journaling. Journaling
Mm,
is helping me process kind of what's going on day to day. I'm not making any big moves. I'm not making any big changes. I'm just journaling because there's something that's happening. I'm taking good care of myself. That's my daily
yeah.
commitment. But if change is coming, it's going to come
Yeah.
from any direction.
Yeah.
All I have control over, I keep log of two things in my life. What do I have control over and what don't I have
Yeah.
control over? I have control over how I take care of myself every day. I have
hmm
control over keeping the bigger picture. I always like to say, be kind to my future self.
Yeah.
The kindest thing that I can do to my future self right now is to take care
Yeah.
of my future self, to be
Yeah.
nurturing. So, my way of entering into what could be change or transition is to take the very best care of myself as I can.
Yeah.
And I know that I have made it through everything I have been faced with so far. And I have the
Yeah.
confidence in knowing that whatever is ahead, I'll make it
Yeah.
through it somehow.
Yeah.
I don't, they used to say, this too
Confidence and
shall pass.
resilience are remembered, right? It's a memory. It's a
It's
memory back to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a memory back to it, and I'm human like anyone else. I don't necessarily
hmm
love things when you get blindsided by stuff, but you know
Sure.
what? That's life. That's why I'm
Right.
happy that I have the faith practice that I have so that it's
Yeah.
not all on me. But also on the flip side, I have enough agency that I can make sure
Yeah.
that I am the best me that I can be for today because I don't have any
Yeah.
control over what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if I
That's
take
so
care
good.
of today, take care of me today, take care of you today, whoever's listening,
hmm
that's going to put you in a good place for
Yeah.
whatever comes your way tomorrow. And it could be a good thing, and you still want to
Yeah.
take care of you today.
And you still want to take care of it. I think,
Yeah.
as what you're talking about, especially people who have strategic thinking teams. It's so funny. It seems so simple, but truly journaling ends up being incredibly transformational. The act of capturing information and seeing the pattern, even if you're not someone who necessarily goes back and looks at all the things you've written, writing things down, your mind knows it's captured somewhere. And so it doesn't feel the need to lose it. So what I so often say to people, you'll notice your brain will spin. It's your brain trying to embed the information. because
Yes.
it's afraid of being lost. The minute it's journaled or captured someplace, your mind knows I could go back to it if I needed to. I can stop. And so the act of capture is a
Yes.
big piece for people to use when it comes to navigating in some ways.
Can I give you a quick tool
Yeah.
that I think your audience could find helpful? I love listening to The Moth. It's a
Mm.
podcast of people telling stories.
Telling
So
stories.
Matthew Dix, he was like a 34 or 35 time Story Slam winner on The Moth.
Mm.
He wrote a book, and I can't remember what it was, but he has something called Homework for Life. And so for everyone who is doing great things and you want to do great things and you want to grow as a person, Dix basically just says grab a journal, and every day you want to just write down a transformational moment that happened that day,
Mm.
whether it was an aha moment, whether it was something you thought about differently. And he said it doesn't have to be the big things. I look in my journal, and I remember one day I wrote down about how I was eating nacho chips with butter on them. I was having a tough day. And so I'm eating nacho chips with butter, and I'm
That's a
griping with,
thing.
oh yeah. Well, and I'm griping to my daughter about something that someone did annoyed me. And I was like, how could they be like that? What's wrong with it? My daughter goes, you do know you're eating nacho chips and you're spreading butter on them. And I wrote that down in my journal. I mean, I would have forgotten about that moment.
Mhm.
But that moment was a story that I may use one day in a book, but it was just a reminder to me about when I'm not present and aware with who I am, I'm going to start judging people around me.
Mm. Mm.
That was an
Yeah.
aha moment that I wanted to capture for myself. And so
Yeah.
you can Google it out there, friends. You can Google
Dicks.
homework for life, and it's
Okay.
a really valuable
Yeah.
self-reflection tool.
Yeah, and that's really good because I think that's going to step into one last thing I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you about because the dark side of these, our themes are always, our Clifton Strengths themes are neutral, and so how we use them to serve and things like that. And your profile is it's so service oriented, it's
Mhm.
action oriented, it's like creating things for the world. One of the things though we'll spend a lot of time, my team and I, when it comes to coaching these days, is we talk about the model of how the world is built on a model. If I do have, I'll be. If I do the right thing, I'll have the right results and I'll be happy. If I do
Right.
the right sit-ups, I'll have the right abs and I'll be loved and embraced. If I do the right investing, I'll have the right returns and I'll be secure. The problem is that do and have are double bets that no guarantee that doing will get you the having, and there's zero bet that the having will get you the being. And so we reorient the world going, who is it I want to be? And we start at death. We say pick a day to your death and work backwards. We're like, who do I want to be and have embodied? And then I can have that mindset of being now, and that mindset then leads to the doing, which will result in some having. But the ultimate will be we'll have grown into that being part. And so that line for you, Barb, in a world and in a natural, somebody ambitious and impactful and talented and powerful, to be able to go, I get to do those things, but I don't have to. They're expressions of my being versus their confirmation of who that I'm versus it being a I don't know who I am if I'm not. So therefore I must push, I must drive, I must do. How do you navigate the getting to versus having to when you're trying to live from a human being part, which is something you talk a lot about?
For me, I think I can express it in a couple of ways. One is a favorite quote of mine, and I think because I think because it just sums up where my tensions are at. And it's a quote from a Nazi camp survivor, Corrie ten Boom. And she says, I
Mm,
hold everything lightly because it hurts when God pries my fingers from it.
mm, mm.
And it is, it can sound negative, like God is just out
Yeah.
to take things away. But what it is really for me, it's
Yeah.
just this reminder of making my life about the things I do or the things that
Yeah.
I think I control. And so I want to
Yeah.
hold all of those things lightly. And then the other facet of it is I choose to believe that in the face of life's existential questions, who will love me? Am I safe? And what will happen to me?
Hmm.
I choose to believe that I am deeply and greatly loved.
Mm.
And in holding on to that when I make mistakes, holding on to that when life doesn't turn out like I want, holding on to that when I don't love myself,
Yeah.
that is something that keeps me from having to hustle for my self-worth,
Yeah.
because that's why I love birthdays. We celebrate people just for breathing. And
That's so good.
everyone, yeah, we need to celebrate each other just for breathing, because
Hmm.
when we live from that place of being convinced that we are loved for who we are and as we are, that turns the fire down on us trying to use our gifts to manipulate others. Uh,
Yeah.
it it quiets the voices at night that tell us that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
It keeps our hands off of people and places and things where they don't belong.
So good. So good. Thank you, Barb. I really appreciate what I saw all those years ago is still true. And in fact, I look at your strengths with strategic learner, achiever, input, focus. Your gift to help people believe they can find a way. Like that's what comes up for me now is that ability to go, hey, let's keep the right things, and we can find a way. There's a way. And that giving of hope, like that's part of the genius that you offer us as the world. And so, you're kind of a tree that produces hope fruit. And so I'm excited that we get to continue doing that as I look at, I mean, all the books. I really do hope that you keep finding those ways to kind of contribute because it really is a gift. I mean, it really makes us believe there's a way. And in a world where there are no maps, we look for people. We're like, oh wait, Barb's made it over that rock somehow. How did she do that? Because we need that inspiration. So I really, and I've reached out to you before. We've stayed in touch over these years that like you've been an inspiration. How you've simply lived your life has been really impactful for me. So thank you for making the time to do this for me and kind of joining us today.
Well, everything you said, I could say it in return. Thank you for playing a key role in some important spaces. And it's fun for me to cheer you on as you too are doing some incredible things that show people they matter and how much you are making a difference, friend. I love that we get to cheer each other on.
Thanks, Barb. Me too. Thank you guys again for joining us today on Maps Are Dead with Mike D. We'd love to have, again, the like, follow, share. Thanks for watching Maps Are Dead. If these conversations are helping you rethink your path, do us a favor. Like, follow, and leave a 5-star review. Helps other people find us and helps others find their way. And if today's episode is hit home, if the map you're following doesn't quite feel right, we've got something for you. We call it the navigation brief. Here's how it works. You send us your top 5 Clifton strengths. We're going to send you back a custom video with real insights. Where you are, what's holding you back, and how to start moving with more clarity. No fluff, no hype, just truth, direction, and a little shot of momentum. You can sign up at the link in the show notes or in the podcast description. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next episode. Remember, maps are dead, so live courageously.